Hey guys, I'm Jacob, and today I want to talk to you about a knife that I'm very excited about. This is the Reiff Knives Circadian. This knife actually launches and releases officially today. Who cares? Well, I care, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why. So we're going to take a look at this knife up close, and we're going to compare it to some other knives. We're going to get into a little bit of knife nerd, knife history, and look at just where this $300 knife, as of 2024, falls into a value matrix with comparable knives on the market. So let's get right into it. So what do we have here, really? This is a Crazy Horse leather sheath made by Badger Claw Leather. So it is very cool that we have a name brand aftermarket, custom maker making the sheaths for this production knife. And it does come with an ulti clip. I'm going to talk about that more later. It's very cool. What we have here, basic 3-inch bladed knife, roughly, and today I want to talk about it in comparison to some Odysee knives and to my own knife, talk about what is so doggone cool about it. I think a mosquito bit me in the nose and inside the ear. But anyways, my Micarta scales, these are the first scales for Reiff that are swappable, so you can swap scales. That will be really cool, especially for aftermarket availability from people like Lucas Carroll and Three Trees Outdoors. So if you buy one of these and decide that you want some bougie scales for special occasion or just different material altogether, you can do that, or you can swap them back and forth or whatever. But just a nicely contoured knife, Magna Cut steel, wonderful edge thickness. I want to jump directly into looking at this knife and looking at other knives at different price ranges to give us a little bit of context. So the Reiff is $300, and I think that's where a lot of people are going to stick. You already know it's Magna Cut. You already know it's from Reiff, so it's really nice quality. It comes with a cool sheath. We've already talked about all of that, but what does $300 actually get you? And so to get into a little bit of history, I want to talk about some Odysee knives and some prices and talk about what you would get there. But we're actually going to start with Ontario. And this is the Ontario Rat 3. Ontario Knife Company is currently in some kind of limbo. But to break this down really quick, the guys at Odysee used to have their designs made by Ontario. Something happened. Ontario said, hey, we literally own your name. And Odysee left, and Ontario continued to make their designs. I don't know if that's as well summarized as it should be, but essentially, Ontario manufactured a cheaper version of an Odysee 3 called the Rat 3. Very similar knife, and this is the sheath that you would get. And you wouldn't know what steel you would get. Originally it was $10.95, and then at some point it was $10.75, and maybe at some point it was some other steel too. But you wouldn't know based on where you bought it or the packaging, and you could not contact the manufacturer and find out. I tried. And then when it came to quality, maybe you got a bit, maybe you didn't. It might depend on what day you bought the knife. Absolutely wonky edges, completely dull knives, edges with waves all over the place, or knives ground high on one side and low on the other side. All of this was relatively likely, and they were happy to sell these in states that should not have gone out the door, I think for around $50. Or maybe you'd get a really nice one, but sometimes you got one that looked really nice, and then it broke or failed or it didn't hold an edge or whatever else because it probably was halfway heat treated. That was Ontario Knives. Congratulations to everybody who got a good one. And I'm not saying that the good ones are not out there. I'm just saying there was no guarantee when you bought this. Essie, however, was a whole step up. This is a very early Essie Rat 3 with a clip, or RC3 with a clip point from Rat Cutlery Co. before Essie was Essie. And I have reprofiled it, thinned out the edge a little bit, steepened the bevel. This was going to be $10.95, manufactured by Rowan. And the quality control was not just a little bit better, but significantly better. When you buy Essie, you have a lifetime warranty, not because they're mass producing cheap knives that they assume you're not going to use and that they can just replace if you are one of the people that does use it. They do a lifetime warranty because they have the quality control and to some degree the edge thickness to be sure that the knife that you got was going to be a acceptable knife. And some of them come with Kydex, some of them come with this nylon injected type sheath. It's good for the money. This is old school though. And you got square scales, and I personally don't love the choil on the SE3. So what you got $10.95. These were actually kind of expensive back in the day. You could expect, I think, to pay $120 to $150 in yesterday's money, which was worth a lot more than today's money. But design-wise, they were, I think, ahead of their time. But this choil, on such a small knife, it was kind of like either let's get rid of the choil or make the choil slightly larger. I don't know that they fit. I don't know many people that love this choil. I actually took a file or a Dremel and I made a little divot there, so it's a little better for me. Great knife, great piece of history, really. Then now value-wise, you can get a newer SE3 with 3D contoured scales and this sheath, I think for about $120 today. That's not the MSRP, but that's the street price. That's a decent value. And then you can get it in S35VN. I'm actually spitballing here because I forgot to look this up. I think you're going to pay about $150 for that, $140, $150, something like that. Probably depends on where you're going to buy it. And then we have a more modern era of Essies where you have the Senseo and A2 in MagnaCut. Now, the value here is not really a good comparison because your Senseo in A2 runs, I think, $150 in A2, which is a great price. It's a great value. I think it's in line when you consider our specifications with our other knives here. But right now on Midway, I saw the MagnaCut was on sale also for $150. That's like a buy it price. That's on sale. I don't know why those are getting blown out. I don't know if Essie is going to continue to make those, but if they do, that is going to be your value leader, and that is a limited time thing. If you're watching this video a little bit down the road in the future, that's not the actual value of what that knife should be worth, and you're probably not going to see that price currently. And then you have the Essie Pacaya. Now, my memory's a little fuzzy because, as you can tell, I'm shooting off the hip here. I believe those are 3V. Good edge thickness. They're thin behind the edge. We've got a modern super steel. They're manufactured like the Senseo by White River Knife and Tool. I have held one. You get something like an Azula shape blade on an SE3 sized blade with a somewhat more simple handle, and again, you're going to pay a little bit more for that. Really, really cool. Now, I own my own knife brand. I am going to mention briefly in about the same category, I have the Exodus 4 or Jackalope. Exodus Knife and Tools, my brand. No questions asked, lifetime warranty on standard options, and these are also made by White River Knife and Tool in Fremont, Michigan. And so these come with a standard clip. They do not come with an ulti clip and a nice Kydex sheath. And depending on which colorways you buy and the different options that you buy, I try to offer a lot. We're looking at between $180 and over $200 for the Exodus 4 or Jackalope. you could say the Exodus 4 jackalope. Kind of like a Becker BK9 is a Becker BK9 survival Bowie. Anyways, up to $200. So now we've got the Reiff and we're bumping up to $300. And so I want to talk about that here as we've got this progression. This knife, I've been carrying it in pocket today. It is absolutely a wonderfully sized knife for my hands, for my pocket. This knife packs a huge punch to drop into your pocket. Wonderful edge thickness, thin behind the edge. Handle ergonomics, edge geometry, everything is right where you want it to be. I talked about steels. My knives are S35 VN, so at around 200 to 210 bucks with Kydex here. With the Reiff, you are getting Magna Cut. So Magna Cut has the potential to perform somewhat similar to S35 VN, but with a little bit more toughness and a lot more corrosion resistance. I am on the Magna Cut train, guys. This is a steel that has a potential to be absolutely phenomenal. Then you get the Badger Claw leather sheath. And then it came with the Ulti clip. So Reiff really took a step up on me here, because obviously Ulti clip is my favorite way to carry my knives. I think it's the way that most of my serious users carry their knives. I offer the Ulti clips on my website, but they're an upcharge. Reiff went ahead and they just included it right there in the package. So we've got the hottest steel on the market right now, and there's a lot of guys who don't want to like Magna Cut because of how popular it is, and I absolutely understand that. And I would never tell someone, you need to go out and buy a knife in Magna Cut if you already have a good knife. But it is, in my opinion, a really nice steel. So what you're getting, you have the option of buying something like an SE3, a little bit larger here, but you have the option to buy something like an SE3 and pay just over $100 and get a usable sheath and a quality knife. Where is the money in paying 3 times as much for the Circadian? Well, firstly, if you get this knife in 1095, no matter how much work you do on your edge, it is going to be thicker, and at the point where you've reprofiled it to the point where it is of equal sliciness, you have lost a lot of toughness. 1095 already does not have as much toughness as Magna Cut, and 1095 already doesn't have anywhere near the edge holding. And the truth of the matter is, your slicing ability in a knife like this, it's not just thickness behind the edge, which is the thickness behind the shoulders of the knife there. It is actually a combination of behind the edge thickness and grind height. So this Circadian, even if the edges were the same thickness at, let's say 20 thou behind the edge, they were at the same thickness, because this one was initially ground thinner, it's still going to be the better performing knife for the deeper cuts. It's still going to have lower friction. So you could buy your cheaper knife, let's say $120. You could go and upgrade your scales, or maybe not. You could reprofile your edge. You could go buy a custom leather sheath, and you could go buy an Ulti clip. You could do all of these things, and when it comes to 1095, you're going to be into it, let's say $200. You're not going to have the same level of knife. You're just not. Let's say you get this in S35 VN. Once again, you're going to be a step up, but you're going to have closer to $250 if you buy a really nice sheath into the knife, and you're still not going to have as much knife. And something like this, in my opinion, there's no reason, there's no comparison. This will never be that. So what you get, there are guys out there, and I understand you. Trust me, I promise. I understand you. There are guys out there who want to buy something cheaper because they want to save a little bit of money, because they want to spend money and time tinkering with their knife. That is fine and understandable. At the end of it all, you probably are not going to get to have a product that is quite as good, but it might be just fine for you. This is the whole package, ready to go. And there are very, very, very few knives in this size range that I have used that have scales that I like this much. Just so you know, I'm not beating up on, and I love Odysee, guys. And there's nothing wrong with getting an Odysee. I brought this out here so that I could compare the Reiff knife to my own knife, so it doesn't just look like I'm trying to trash on somebody else. The Jackalope here has a little bit longer blade and a little bit longer handle, but it's still about the same weight, and it's still about as easy to carry, and in some instances it is easier to carry because of that short height. But this is a balance with a different goal in mind. This handle, my handle, is not as comfortable as the Reiff handle, but the concept of this design was to be comfortable enough and to give you as much handle and as much blade as possible for the weight, so that you could every day carry this knife as easily as possible and have as much performance and pack as much punch as possible for the weight on your everyday carry. This Reiff went a different direction. It's still comfortable in the pocket, but the taller blade, it is going to be more comfortable. It's going to be more balanced towards long-term comfortable use. And again, when Odysee came out, they were groundbreaking, in my opinion. I remember people comparing them to customs and to much more expensive brands, and the Odysee coming out on top because they had better edge geometry. This is the old school. Even if you get a new SE3 with the flat scales and without the clip point in 1095, this is an old school type knife. This is a throwback. Your people just getting into it probably won't even understand. And yet when they dropped, they were kind of a game changer when it came to quality and performance versus price. Knives like the Senseo, the Pacaya, and the Circadian in steels like S35VN, 3V, and MagnaCut, this is what's cutting edge today. Tough steels that can handle thinner edges. At the end of the day, guys, edge holding is like this big. Edge geometry is like this big. Toughness of a steel is like this big. Edge geometry is like this big. When it comes to importance, edge geometry and blade geometry is the number one most important factor. So is the Circadian, like, who cares? It comes out today. Guys, these are going to sell out quickly. The guys who are using these knives have learned the value of the current, up-to-date, modern 2024 handle ergonomics, blade geometry, and edge geometry. They will go quick. And I think Reiff is one of these companies that is helping push the boundaries of what is possible for a production knife and trying to get prices down. Custom knives used to be way more expensive than they are today. And to get a handle this comfortable, a grind this thin and a blade, to get this 10 or 15 years ago, you'd go to a custom maker. And if you went to an established, reputable custom maker, you would pay easily $300 for this knife, probably with no sheath, and you'd probably get it in 1095, 52-100, or something like that. But 10 or 15 years ago, even if you got this knife from the best maker using the best steel available at that time, which was probably S30V, you would not get the level of performance that you're going to get on this production knife in Magna Cut. We are living in the golden age for knife performance versus price. And I promise you, right now it's really easy to look at a knife like this and be like, oh man, that knife is too doggone expensive. Some things are going to happen. The economy is going to be hurting, and you're going to look back and you're going to be like, I could have bought a knife like that for 300 bucks. What the crap was I thinking? It's going to be really hard for small, flexible, hyper-aggressive companies like Reiff Knives to continue to exist where we are going. Just look at where we've been and where we are going. So, we are in the golden age. Relevant? Absolutely. Sick? Absolutely. Is it worth the money? Well, in my opinion, absolutely. I really value performance knives when I'm out. I have become spoiled. But if you use a knife once a year, maybe that's something you'll have to consider. One of my friends has gotten on to me about talking about cost per use because it makes him feel bad about some of the knives that he keeps in his safe. But the more you use a knife, the cheaper it is per use. And a knife like this is a knife that you can put some serious freaking miles on. So that's what I've got right now. If you're watching this video when it came out, the Reiff F3 Extreme, I think it is. I'm probably screwing that up. It's about to be dropped in Magna Cut and in 3V, I think in a variety of colors. And those also will have removable, replaceable, exchangeable scales. Super stoked about that. Super stoked about the direction that Reiff Knives is taking. And guys, little companies like Reiff, and myself in my opinion, that are pushing the envelope forward are forcing your bigger production companies to get outside of their comfort zones and to do the same thing. This is how markets progress and advance. It's a good thing and it's a beautiful thing, and Reiff Knives is right up there with the best of them, just getting it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I guess I hope that you have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you there. Thanks.